How are we doing, everyone? Hello, my fellow gnomes. So this is kind of just an impromptu stream. I kind of thought we'd go over the GnomeJam. If some of you aren't aware that we're running a GnomeJam, it's a thing we do here on the Gnome Code channel. It's a little game jam, and we're giving away 100,000 Robux in prize money, which is quite a lot of money. If apparently there's echoing, is it bad? We don't know. Well, tell me if the microphone is bad, but I'll keep trying to explain the GnomeJam. But I think if you wanted to buy this much Robux from Robux themselves, it would probably set you back about $1,000. So this is a serious prize pool, biggest we've ever done, and I'm hoping it's going to be the most amount of entries we've ever had too. And it's just going to be a lot of fun. It's not really about all the winning of the prize money. It's about taking part. Game Jam's a lot of fun for that. Really challenging yourself to make something. Because when you got that limited time span, it really sort of pushes you, focuses that energy. Whereas when you're making your own game, you're just like, maybe I'll add this feature and maybe I'll go back and rewrite that. And these things just run on and on and on and on. We've got no fixed end in mind. But when you've got a game jam, well, you've really got to focus on exactly what it is you want to do. If you don't know anything about this Gnome Jam, then you should probably watch the video I uploaded yesterday. Loads of information on that. And then in our Discord, we have all the information. I've been pestered so many times in the last 24 hours. Hey, can I do this? Can I do that? And pretty much all of those things have already been answered in the event feed channel, sort of like an FAQ of all the questions. So really, you should check that first. Make sure your question hasn't been answered. But I just wanted to sort of interact with some of the chat and answer some of the other questions that people have that hasn't been answered. Now, something I think a lot of people are struggling with is for this Gnome Jam, you have to use some random assets. So let's just go in and play the asset randomizer game that I've created. Annoyingly, I'm going to have to keep switching into the browser window in order to see the chat from you guys because my streaming software isn't playing ball today, which is always good fun. But I've got to keep it on a little browser window that I'll try and keep open. But let's get into Roblox itself, and if we enable this snazzy stuff, there we go. So this is my like role at the moment. I got a tribal hut and a sound. Let's do a reroll. I'll pay myself 1,000 Robux and see what we get this time. And roll again. What will be another combination? Okay, a skyscraper and a hit sound, medieval. What on earth would we do with all that? So really, what I'm wanting to do is sort of talk through maybe some things that you could do with different combinations. So let's think what we could do with a skyscraper and a medieval hit sound. Let's turn off the background music, and then I'll be able to hear this one a bit better. Can you guys hear that? It's fairly quiet. Maybe if I turn this sound up in here, you'll be able to hear it a bit better. So it's categorized as medieval, but I mean, really, you could use this for anything. So let's go and grab these models if we haven't already. And I'm just going to play about with these inside Studio and talk through like some examples of stuff we could do. So let's grab both of these. Hit punch number 1. 0 Robux for the purchase. I think it's funny how Roblox has this as like the default UI, even if it's just a free model. And that's a pretty good combo. Now, a lot of you guys have got much worse combos, but I thought we would play about with this. I'll tell you what, instead of just going into Studio, why don't we be a bit kind of like Thor? Do you guys know Thor from software, pirate software? right? He has his he always has his paint open, doesn't he? Let's try that instead. Let's try going for a little bit of a Thor vibe, okay? And we'll make it black like this, and then we'll talk you through some things. How about that for an idea? So we have a my gosh, writing is really a pain, isn't it? Let's just draw the thing. We have a skyscraper like this, beautiful skyscraper, and we have a audio of someone giving a punch. So let's think of some ideas. Fighting immediately comes to mind for punching. So we could have fighting. And then we've got a skyscraper, so in terms of theme, it could be city. And so already, without doing anything else, right, you can combine these two and have a city-based fighting game. It could be multiplayer, it could be single player against some NPCs. That's all cool. All right, we could mix it up though. How about it's not a fighting game, but it's a disaster game. Okay, so rather than this sound being from hitting, it could just be for impact. Let's write that down. So if we're using it for impact, then it could be for loads of things. It could be from being hit, or it could just be from a disaster, or any kind of damage. Hopefully you guys can actually read this shoddy writing. I've never tried to do this kind of thing before, but I thought if it works for Thor, then maybe it can work for us too. So if it's a disaster game, well, we're still limited to a city somewhat. We need to use the skyscraper. So we could have it so maybe the skyscrapers are falling down, right? They're falling from the sky, and it's... or we could have maybe like tsunamis are coming in, and whenever you take damage, then you have that sound effect. Another thing you could do is you could have a completely different theme, right? You could have a sci-fi theme, right? Maybe there is an alien invasion. Nothing to stop you from doing that. You can still base it in the city. You can still have damage pretty easily done. Or possibly you don't use this hit sound effect for damage. It could just be for placement. You could use it for a building system. So whenever you place something down, you have this hit sound just as a little gentle impact. So it's still impact, but rather than being about damage, it's just sort of like a little feedback noise. And then it's a city builder. Creepersaw says, "Did you pop out the chat?" I did indeed. Hello, Creeper. I am watching you right now. And partly what actually inspired this stream is Creeper himself. So let me get it. What did Creeper say that he rolled? He got a Marilyn Monroe picture and a... What did he get? What was the other asset you got? Tell me, Creeper. You mentioned you got the Marilyn Monroe picture. So in this role, you can get quite a few different assets. So you always have generally a free model on the left here, but then it's either a sound or a image. So if we re-roll this again, maybe we'll get something different. And some of the images are really pretty tricky. Let's do another re-roll. So we've got a fish sound and a palm tree. That's another good combo. That's another good combo. I was kind of hoping for more tricky ones. Tell me, Creeper, what was the item that you got? You got Marilyn Monroe and something else. He's disappeared now. We're awakening. So I don't think we even need to talk about the palm tree and the fishing sound. I think you're probably going to be making a fishing game there, but of course you don't have to. You don't have to be too like stuck in the box. You could do something completely different if you want. So let's try and work with the palm tree and the fishing reel, but we're going to actually try and do something completely different. Okay. Let's create a new one here. So let's think. If we wanted to still use those assets, but actually make it something else entirely, a different kind of game. So we've got palm trees. That's our that's our palm tree. It looks slightly like an explosion of some sort. That is terrible. But there we go. It's a palm tree. Okay. Stay with me. And then we have the sound, which is it's like a fishing rod. That kind of works, maybe. So, if we didn't want to make a fishing game, well, the reeling sound effect for the fishing, it doesn't have to be a fishing rod. You could use that for loads of things. Something that comes to mind is maybe something like with wire. You could have a zip wire, or a grappling hook. Is that grappling spelled right? Maybe. It's really hard to write with these little pencils. So zip wire, grappling hook. What else could you have? We're just using these two already. You could have some kind of climbing game. You could have, I'm sort of thinking like Mission Impossible and sort of various stealth games. You know, involving wire, where like a guy comes down on a little wire and it's like some sort of jewel theft thing. So I'm going to write down stealth. And let's think, what else? Well, the grappling hook, you could have maybe, could be a harpoon gun. So that's another item you could use. And harpoon you could use for underwater fishing. That could be quite interesting. If you had to go under the water, maybe like shoot sharks or something with your harpoon gun, and then you come back onto the beach where you have the palm trees, and then you have to sell your items. But again, we could do something way more random. So, okay, you're still equipped with a harpoon gun, but then maybe you've got... This is my attempt at an alien. You've got some kind of strange alien again. It's an alien invasion. And you have to shoot them with your grappling hook. And the aliens rely on the palm trees in order to regenerate. So the palm trees are like healing spots. And then you have to guide them away from those palm trees. So the aliens are coming in on like little landing crafts. Okay, and they're all full of these alien dudes. And then you're stood on the beach. Right? You're stood on the beach with your grappling gun, harpoon thing, whatever this is. And you're shooting them. This is just me sort of spitballing here. So I think Creeper did answer me somewhere. He said he got a retro skybox. Cool. Okay, so the skybox is probably something that constrains you a little bit more, because obviously it has to be used as a skybox. You can't really use it for anything else. You can't use it as an item in the game. So it does have to be the skybox. But something to think about is it doesn't have to be the skybox for the entirety of the game. You have to make a game around it, but it doesn't have to be there for the entirety of the game. So the first thing I'm immediately thinking, let's create a new little canvas here, is that maybe we could have two worlds, okay? So we have like a classic world, right? And that's maybe you access that through like a computer. Okay, and when you're inside the classic world, you have the classic skybox. So we'll write down skybox here, inside the classic world. And then maybe you have some kind of IRL world. And this could be set anywhere, right? This can be anywhere. That's a terrible glow, but go with it. So the IRL world, you could choose anywhere, but since you've got Marilyn Monroe, well, maybe it's going to be set in Hollywood. That would be one venue you could do. And of course, we could like mishmash this whole thing up. So maybe Marilyn Monroe has been transported out of Hollywood into the virtual world. And so that's why her character isn't a full 3D character, but actually her character is just that little picture that you have to work with of Marilyn Monroe. And the 2D picture is moving around in 3D space inside of this classic world. But if you didn't want to use the classic skybox all the time, like I'm saying, then you could box it off into this kind of classic zone, and then you could do whatever else you wanted in this, your physical location, if it was Hollywood, or it wouldn't have to be there. It could be a movie set, and there, that would give you kind of any possibility, right? You could be making a movie on the beach. You could be making a movie in Europe. You could be making a movie in Africa, right? You could do it anywhere. But the point is, then you access some kind of computer and you go into that skybox, a classic skybox area, and you could have like just a classic mini game that you have to compete. It could be like a sort of quick time sort of thing. So hopefully that helps maybe a little bit Creeposaur with some kind of ideas that you could do without being too sort of thematically constrained. Let's play about with some other things people have got. I think a few people have no idea what's going on with my drawings, which is fair. They're not the best. I've never tried to write things out with my mouse before, really. So let's see. We did a question of the day in Gnomeland earlier, and I asked people what sort of combos they got. So let's have a look at some of the combos. I know a lot of people have been complaining, oh, I can't make anything with this. So let's see what people got. Let me switch over to Discord so you can see what I'm looking at. 1 second, folks. Okay, there we go. And maybe a little small. You can kind of see what we're dealing with. So we have... Let's move it a little bit. There we go. That's a bit better, isn't it? So a Skibidi toilet and a dragon painting. That's interesting. So the Skibidi toilet I kind of threw in as a bit of a troll, but there's a whole mix of assets. So some of them are like troll, comedy, silly elements. And then some of them are more serious, potentially more useful. But I throw these in to make things interesting. So let's just go with Skibidi Toilet for a little bit, shall we? And kind of think about what we might be able to do with that. So let's create a new canvas. Skibidi Toilet. I wonder if I write with a slightly bigger pen. Is that going to be easier? Potentially. Okay. Skibidi. Skibidi Toilet. What can you do with this? Is that a toilet? How can we make this toilet look better? Is that better? It's really not, is it? But let's abandon the drawing of the toilet. We can't draw a toilet. Okay. So the obvious kind of choice, I would say, is that you do something based on the actual YouTube shorts, the whole lore, If you want to, you can totally do a Skibidi toilet themed game. So let's just write down lore as one thing you could do if you wanted to go in that direction. I just know that this is going to get clipped now. There's going to be a screenshot going around me, Skibidi toilet, and lore. This is... I really should have thought about this. But here here it is. You have this clip of me talking about this. But it's for GnomeJam. It's for GnomeJam. So that's one option. Now, a second option is you could kind of just do a flip of this. So you could do like an anti-lore game, or like a sort of fourth wall breaking, fourth wall slash self-aware. Okay, so you could have the game acknowledge that Skibidi Toilet is stupid, or that it's silly, or that you're purely using this asset because of the GnomeJam. You could go that direction if you want, just kind of break open that fourth wall and say, yeah, I'm aware of this joke, but we're playing into it. So that would be option 2. Option 3. So potentially what you could do, let's look at this asset again. There it is. Oh no, I haven't got it up. My mistake. I can't remember exactly which Skibidi Toilet asset it is, but you could do something with rotation or translation, and you could possibly remove the head entirely. So let's do something like, I've written an A there, rotation slash obfuscation. So I'd say this is option 3. And this would be concealing in some way that it's Skibidi. So just having it as a generic toilet. Maybe you place another part in front of it, or you rotate the object in such a way that actually it looks like something different. I'm going to go into Studio just to sort of explain what I mean here, because I think that would probably be better to explain it in 3D space. So let's get up Studio. There we go. This is kind of big, but it's maybe okay. Make it a bit smaller. Right. I'm not sure which was the exact model, but I'll just search for Skibidi and we can grab one. I think it's probably this one. Add it in. I don't know what the script is. Probably something just like it's some kind of facing player script. So anyway, we get rid of that. And let's see. With this toilet, I think it's all one mesh. Oh no, okay. So the head is actually separate. So if you wanted, you could hide the head a bit, and maybe you could have it so it's in like some weird. You make a sci-fi game where toilets just look like this, and you don't even bother to explain it. You're just like, oh yeah, this is just a generic toilet. Yep, just use the toilet. Perfectly normal game. You can do this. This is fine. This is within the rules if you want. Or alternatively, rotation, right? So you rotate it in a certain way so that it actually looks like something different, or it's less obvious. So let's say I have it like this. Like, what even is that? I would say that's not immediately obvious what that is. If I duplicate it, it almost looks like a chest of drawers, potentially. Just kind of playing along here with, like, different thoughts. It could be some kind of, like, machine or spaceship that you interact with. We flip the thing upside down. Could it look like a... Oh, unfortunately, the mesh kind of clips a bit. But I was going to say we could use this thing as a boat. If the mesh worked better, you could move it as use it as a little boat. It almost looks a bit like a sort of outboard engine or something. So that's an idea. And then what else was the asset that we were talking about? A dragon image. I mean, you can use a dragon image for a lot of things, I would say. So the obvious way to use all these kind of elements is you literally just have picture in the game and you give the picture some... Let's add an image onto this. Okay, there we go. So you have it in the game, and obviously you don't took it out the way, you have it as some kind of relevance. So maybe you go and you talk to an NPC, and the NPC says, "Oh yeah, there's a secret entrance. Go and look out for the television." But then the television is actually sort of a riddle, and is actually a picture of a television man, and then you go through that. It's a fake wall, and it's actually like a passageway. That would be an example of how you could use one of those images in your game. Let's think. What other use could you have for an image? So the dragon is pretty versatile, isn't it? So the dragon could be used thematically for the game. You could have some sort of dragon training game. You could press that button and you could get like a dragon support, and a bunch of fire suddenly like attacks loads of enemies. Fire from above. I think people want to see more Skibidi though, I reckon. Let me know if the chat if you want me to keep going with Skibidi. I've got all my notes here ready to go with Skibidi. Shall I keep going? We can keep going with Skibidi. I'm all for it. Oh, seems people aren't that keen. I'm not keen for the Skibidi. I think they do. I think the problem is the chat just doesn't know what they want. You see, right now I am like Steve Jobs, okay? Nobody knew that they wanted the smartphone. No one knew that they wanted an iPhone, but he went and made it anyway. People don't know that they want Skibidi Toilet Gnomeco Edition, but they're going to get it and they're going to be addicted to it. They're going to realize it's what they need. So that's what we provide here on the channel. I'm going to try and think of one more option though, just because it's fun as a kind of exercise. And so I'm going through this purely because people say, Skibidi Toilet, there's nothing you can do with that. It's so bad. It's the worst asset you could possibly have. And we're just sort of playing with it. So obviously we can play it straight. We can use the lore. We can make it self-aware. I think I saw Griffo say in the chat, you could have a game where there's like a kid that's addicted to it. And so maybe the game is like about curing that addiction. That could be pretty fun. So that would be another option. We talked about how you could rotate it, obfuscate it, maybe make it so that the asset is something else. Let's think of a fourth element. I'm kind of wondering if you could use the model kind of as it is, but not make it Skibidi. Is it possible that you could have like a rig? Let me turn off the joints and like delete the head or something, and have. I mean, I'm just thinking aloud here, but that you could like maybe have like a person. I mean, this looks pretty bad, but I'm just thinking aloud here that maybe you could make this into something. Maybe a different size rig would work better. What's the skinned avatar like? Okay, that's quite something, isn't it? Can we delete the head, or does that mess everything up? Okay, we can. Let's see. if you tried to make like a G-Man thing, and then stay with me. I know this is terrible, but then you made him some kind of like astronaut suit, so it was also obfuscated as well. So let's say he's wearing some big chunky suit. Obviously not this part, but I'm just doing this as an example. Let's search for astronaut helmet. And let's add this thing in. This looks kind of cool. Because I feel like you could kind of make this work. Right? It kind of fits. An astronaut helmet kind of fits on the top of a toilet. It actually works. It works, guys. It does. Is there another one? I don't want to see if there's one with a helmet we can edit a bit better. Because these are all one mesh, which isn't great. Anyway, so that's another option. Okay, so we're putting this on a list. We're putting this on our list, guys. We're saying that if you have... Oh, did I not have that showing? Did I not have it showing? Anyhow. We're putting that down as option number 4. Space toilet helmet astronaut. That's it. That is the 4th option. They're the 4 games you can make. So we're going to move on to some different things now. I think it's for the best. It's for the best. What have we got over in the Discord? A potted plant and biohazard. Okay, let's see what we can cook with that. So let's keep that open. And what if we move that up? Can I move that like not really. Okay, let's just pop it off the screen for a minute. So brand new canvas. The viewership's going to go down now, I'm telling you guys. Now we're no longer doing Skibidi. The viewership's going to go. People aren't here for anything else. People are here for Skibidi analysis. You know it. You know it, guys. So we have got a potted plant. Oh, let's make sure we got potted plant. And we have biohazard. Can I draw the biohazard logo thing? Probably not. That's my attempt. That's not the best, is it? That's shocking. That is shocking. Okay, let me have another attempt. You ready, guys? I'm gonna have another attempt at drawing that. In 3, 2, 1. Oh wow, what a great drawing I've just done. That's really impressive, Gnome Code. Well done. Great drawing. I love it. Wow, that's so good, Gnome Code. You can draw so quick. Now our plant pot's looking a bit shoddy, but we'll stick with that. So what can we do with this? Well, I'm thinking, first of all, let's just break down biohazard. So I'm thinking about radiation. That's the first thing I'm thinking of. And I'm thinking about apocalypse. I'm thinking about nuclear. I'm thinking about space, sci-fi. Sci-fi, and I'm thinking also about war, sort of war zones. What else would biohazards make you think of? Plague. I suppose this all comes into the sort of apocalypse. There's all different types of apocalypse. Let's fix that up. And so with all that stuff we've written down, now let's turn to our plant. How could our plant fit into all of these kind of categories? Well, what about a plant like some sort of genetic mutation? I don't know if you guys know the the Day of the Triffids. It's sort of a sci-fi apocalypse book about some like evil mutant plants that start taking over. So we could write down mutant plant. I guess we don't really need to write down the plant, but there we go, mutant plant. So the plant is some kind of monster, right? And we've got to run away from it. Okay. Another thing I'm thinking of is maybe the entire Earth has been destroyed. So it's sort of scorched Earth. And this is the last surviving plant. So we'll write down last survivor. And so you have to escort this plant out of the wilderness and get it back to where it needs to be. Maybe it's to some spaceship. Maybe it's to some kind of like new colony, some new safe haven that's going to be made. That's another cool suggestion I just saw in the chat. Someone said maybe you use it for oxygen. So if all of these things are true, then you probably not got a very good planet left. So you're relying on it for oxygen. Maybe you could be like carrying it, escorting it. So what's the name of that Kojima game? Death Stranding? Was it Death Stranded? Where the guy carries a little... Death Stranding. He carries a little baby on his back. Let me find a picture to show you guys if you don't know it. Okay, so it looks like this. And the guy has to carry this baby with him on this sort of... I've not even played the game, but I just know some of the art, and it's quite iconic. So imagine if it was this, but you're carrying a plant instead. Could be interesting. What else could we have? Maybe... Thinking on this plague idea, maybe it's not a plague that's killing off people, but it's a plague that's killing off the plants. So maybe humanity's totally fine. Maybe you're just working as some little herbalist somewhere, but all of your little plants and herbs are dying in your garden. There's some sort of strange radioactive matter killing them off. And you have to care for the plants. So it could just be as simple as some kind of gardening game where you're having to stave off infection. It wouldn't necessarily have to be like all plants ever on some grand scale, but it's just your little collection of plants. As an idea. If you don't want so much of a grand scale. Another thing you could do is, and I haven't really talked about this at all yet, but you could just do games that already exist and shoehorn in this concept. So I was just thinking about it as I was doing all this. Well, an obvious one where we have plants already in the title is Plants v Zombies. And you could literally just use this whole concept, right? The zombies are being killed off or being created as zombies by radiation. You're placing down the plants They're potted plants. That's it. You've already got it. You don't need to do anything else. But you could do another game that's less specific. So let's think of a random game, completely random game. Sea of Thieves. Okay, so Sea of Thieves, but this time, the treasure in the game is plants. So it's like you want to plunder ships and grab the plants, and you just have this underlying theme of radiation. So maybe it's like sci-fi Sea of Thieves, and you have to take with you a geyser counter. Let's write that down. Well, not over here. Over here. A geyser counter. That's terrible. Counter. You know those little devices and they make little sort of vibrations when it's starting to vibrate? When it's you're starting to get radiation. So you had something like that, and you're trying to loot ships for the plants, but it's a race against time because you don't want to die of radiation poisoning. Okay, so that's another canvas. We're filled with some ideas. Bunch more stuff we could do. Let's have a look. What other things are people wondering about? We'll bring up the Discord again. Grass, mountain, and sci-fi glow. So this sci-fi glow image, I feel, is pretty easy to use. You could do a lot of stuff with that. You could use it as some sort of charge up as part of like a gun. So you could have this appear in front of like the barrel of the gun. It's some sort of laser weapon. You could use it in 3D space as a billboard UI. Is it billboard? Yeah, billboard UI, not surface UI. That always face the camera. And you could make it bigger and smaller so it's sort of pulsed in and out. And you could use that for loads of things. It could be a teleport you had to get to, like a healing regen point. Checkpoint would work pretty nicely, actually. And then for the mountain, that's probably going to be your map. It wouldn't have to be, though. What else could you do with a grass mountain? Something that's interesting is maybe if you shrunk it right down. It could be used as... Well, I mean, if we blocked out where it says grass mountain on the screen and just looked at that image, it's not even clear what that could be, right? It's just sort of like a brown and green lump. Heck, maybe you could even use this as ice cream in your game, right? You could use it as some sort of like chocolate and mint ice cream. There's an idea. You could literally make an ice cream parlor game with these two assets. So there's your suggestion there. What else do we have? Big head creature and old noob photo. So you could have the big head as a mob, as sort of the enemy, right? Some sort of Teddy, that kind of game. The old noob photo, I feel like that works quite well for some sort of horror creation. Maybe you're wanting to like track down this noob. This noob was last seen at Roblox HQ 2006. Where did he go? What happened to him? We don't know. All we know is big head. Maybe that's something you could do. I don't know. We have medieval shield and rocks falling. That's a pretty good combo mix again. So the obvious use, of course, for a shield is it's some kind of medieval game, it's some kind of fighting game, right? Rocks falling. You could maybe have a catapult, something like that, staying in theme. But think outside of the theme. Remember how I talked about with the toilet, we could like rotate it, slightly obfuscate what it is. Maybe you could turn the shield into a giant raft. Maybe you could make the shield different colors, make it a bit brighter, and it could be a parasol on a beach. The rocks falling. So you could use it for a catapult, like I said, for an avalanche. Maybe you could use it for a mining game as well. So it's just like the sound effect that you make, where when you're hitting the rocks, you have that little rocks falling sound. There could be an idea. Something you can do a lot of these sound effects, maybe not the rocks falling ones so much, but a lot of them is you could add in some reverb sound effects. How many sound effects are there? Let's just go back into Studio a second. I can't remember. If you have a sound, what are all the things you can add in? You've got a distortion, a pitch shift, a reverb, an echo, and an equalizer. And they all kind of change how the sound feels. But generally, if you add a bit of reverb onto something, as it says, it simulates the effect of bouncing off walls in a room, a little bit of an echo effect, and it makes it feel a little bit creepy. And that can be perfect to add a bit of a horror twist to a game. So it could just be some distant rocks falling. Right? Ooh, what was that? Where was that? Right? It just adds a little bit of something. You know, if you're hearing that throughout the game, you're not quite knowing what you're facing. Right, let's look at some more suggestions then. What else do we have? We have Conan Doyle. Yeah, so there's a few pictures of like famous people. Obviously, we talked about Marilyn Monroe. Conan Doyle's another one that I think was in there. So he's the author of Sherlock Holmes. You could create something Sherlock Holmes themed, of course, for your game. But maybe you want to take this in a different direction. You don't have to use him as Conan Doyle. You could just have him as some mysterious old man. Maybe it's like a mystery game where you're trying to find out what happened to this man. Maybe it's like a Victorian themed game, but maybe it's not. Maybe it's a sci-fi game, and this is sort of the last known photo of a human. You could do various directions with that. Grand chair and a flute. That's not a bad combo. I feel like they're both sort of, well, they are categorized as being both medieval. Let's think what else you might want to do with this. Shall we open up another canvas for this? Let's do that. I feel like that's kind of fun doing the drawing on the canvas. Grand chair and a flute. Create a new panel. So we're going to have our... Let's make this a bit bigger. We're going to have our chair. Our grand chair, no less. So we've got our chair over here. And then we've also got some kind of... I don't know how to represent a flute. And then I'll... Okay. That's the flute. Go with it. So, first off, they're both medieval, so maybe you're working as a jester. So let's write down jester underneath the flute. And you need to please, the chair could be for a king. So it's some kind of game where you, could be like a Guitar Hero type thing, like a rhythm beat game where you have to time your button presses in order to please the king. And then if you mess up your timings, then the king gets mad and you like lose the game. Oh, here's an idea. What about musical chairs? Let's write that one down. Musical chairs. So the flute's playing in the background, and then the chairs are slowly disappearing. I've never seen I don't think I've ever seen an online multiplayer game for musical chairs. But why not? It would actually work pretty easy with Roblox, seeing as we've already got the chair part. So you wouldn't need to do too much scripting, really. Could be quite fun. What else? Let's see if we could turn this on its head a little bit. Maybe you could turn the chair into a wheelchair. Let's write that down. Wheelchair. And let's move that a bit so you can see it. And then you move about in the chair. So you're roaming about in the map in this sort of wheelchair thing. It wouldn't have to be a wheelchair. I suppose it could be like flying as well. And then the flute. Maybe you're fighting a peasant uprising and you as king have banned music. So there's a ban on music ban. And you have to fight the music playing peasants. There's an idea. Chair and flute. How about you have to play as a flute? Okay, what if the chairs are the enemy instead? You play as a flute. So it's a stealth game. Okay. And you can roll along the floor as the flute. But if you want to move quicker, you have to play the tune. So that the flute noise actually only plays if you're trying to move quickly. And obviously that's going to draw the attention of the enemies. The enemies could be literal chairs, or you could just have loads of chairs in the map. Probably less esoteric. So you're just kind of like moving around a dining room or something. Okay, so the story is the jester is playing the flute, but then he drops it on the floor. And then you're the flute and you're trying to escape from the jester. There's a bunch of chairs you have to hide around. And when you move fast, you play the little flute noise, and then it draws the enemies to your attention. So there's a more wacky concept, perhaps. Let's see if we can think of anything else here. You could use the flute as some kind of weapon in of itself. Perhaps less interesting. You could use the flute as like a dart blowgun, or sort of like a pea shooter, or some sort of range weapon. You wouldn't actually have to use it as a flute. Oh no, sorry, I'm getting confused. It's a flute sound effect, isn't it? Not a flute asset. So you do have to use a sound effect. But the chair doesn't have to be a chair. You could use the chair. What could you use the chair as? Maybe the chair is some kind of door. And you kind of have to like move the door, and depending on how like open the door is, it's like letting in people. And then sorry, I'm not explaining this at all, am I? There's something in my head, but I think it's gone now anyway. Let's move on. But I was trying to imagine the music as some kind of energy. I'm not quite sure what I was going for. What else have we got? zombie waypoint, and bones. Okay. They feel like fairly compatible. The bone sound effect, from what I remember, is just like a little music sting, in a sort of bony, spooky way, spooky, scary skeleton way. So this zombie, I think he just has a very... Sorry, I'm not displaying what I'm looking at, am I? There you go. The zombie has a very... He has these two blocks and a very basic script that just moves him between the two of these. Now, some people wonder, oh, can you modify what you have at all? Can you change the scripts? Of course you can. The script is just kind of there as a dummy thing. The main thing is like having the asset, and it's recognizable. So if you go to the event feed channel, you'll see we have all the rules and frequently asked questions. And a bunch of people have been asking me these, and they've already answered. So most common thing is like, can I do this with the asset? And the answer is always, yeah. Yes, you can. Just make sure that it's still recognizable as the original. And don't just try and like tuck it away in the corner of the game, because that's not really in the spirit of this jam. It's to try and use it for something interesting. So the more creative, more interesting, and the more I feel like you're really playing into the theme of the jam, then the more we're going to respect that when we come to reviewing it. Now, that's not to say that if you play it straight. So earlier we talked about like that fishing rod and the beach. You could just make a really good fishing game, and that would be fine, right? You don't have to do all of this weird like mental gymnastics we've been talking about. You can play it straight if you want. Just make a good game, and if you make a good game, then you'll do well in the GnomeJam. Star Wars Dev is in the chat asking, can you change the speed of the sound, make it slow or faster? Yeah, absolutely you can. You can talk about all of those sound effects you can add in, like reverb or echo. Again, don't make it too extreme that no one could possibly recognize it's the same sound. But yeah, you can like chop and change things a little bit. Totally. Oh, Mr. Griffo, you're actually making a fishing game. Nice. Hello, TMF Mon. Yeah, you can change the speed of the sound, Star Wars Dev. War Thunder Warrior, him and his friend are making a game for the challenge. Awesome. Hope it goes well for you too. CC Shout is asking for a shout out. I guess you've got one now. People think Chris is holding me hostage. Interesting. Chris is asking if you can change the model size by a fraction of a percentage. Absolutely not. That would be 100% cheating. Of course you can. What can you cook up with palm tree and man face? The man face is sort of an interesting one. Let's think about that then. So palm tree, we've sort of talked about some ideas here. Let's just talk about the man face on its own, because I feel like the palm tree is fairly adaptable in that, well, you can just do a game like on a beach or in a tropical, slightly tropical setting, and you kind of covered there. But let's talk about the man face. And I'm gonna copy and paste this in, because I'm not going to be able to draw and capture the true true artistic wonder that it is. So we'll add this in here. There we go. And let's delete that a little bit. There we go. What could we do with this? So obviously the first thing that kind of comes to mind is that you just have it as an NPC, right? You just have people with this face. That's pretty easy. second thing you could maybe do is, what if, let's just add this to a new layer. I'll explain why in a moment. What if, and I don't know if this would actually work. Like I say, I'm just thinking aloud. I'm thinking aloud for all these ideas. What if you were to like rotate it upside down? I suppose it's still recognizable as a face. But I would just wonder if you could maybe do something with this where it's like... Okay, now it's a horror game. This is pretty interesting. He's coming. He's coming. And then... he's coming out of here. Doo-doo. 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 Doo-doo-doo-doo-doo. Okay, so we're writing that down. It could be a horror game. I was gonna say maybe you could just use it as like a sort of texture for something, but I don't think that really works. So instead, horror. Another thing that you could maybe do with this is you could have it as, rather than being a literal face in the game, if you wanted to maybe try and make something more realistic, is it's like a drawing in the game. So it could be a drawing, or maybe some kind of like cave painting or marking. So it's like, oh, we've found this strange drawing in the wilderness. What does this mean? Mystery. What else could we do with the man face? Obviously, there's a lot of meme potential, so you could make some sort of meme-themed game if you want to do that. But I think realistically, you're going to be using it as the NPC in some way, right? Either to do horror or meme or literally any kind of game. You're probably just going to be applying this face to a character. Something else, you could have it maybe for your own character. So you could have it as your face. And you could have some like weird backstory where either you're trying to either earn back your face, like earn your soul back, right? It's like an awful face that's been drained of any soul. So I don't know, something along those lines, or maybe you've been cursed. You've been cursed, and you need to go on a quest. Cursed with face. We'll write that down. Cursed with face. For NPCs, it could be... I feel like it would work well to have maybe a zombie outbreak sort of game. But instead of it being like your generic green, gory zombies, maybe they're like 2012, circa 2012, man-faced noobs. That could be interesting. When did the man face get released, actually? Let's look that up. Roblox man face. Because I have no idea. Oh, it was 2012. I got that right. Apparently it went off sale last year. Did anyone know that? Can't buy it anymore. Tragic. Wonder why. Did they take it off because it was a troll and they like didn't like how it was used? Huh. Or maybe it had something to do with the new like dynamic faces that they're trying to bring in. Did they make an updated, an animated one? Oh yeah, okay. People are saying that in the chat. Yeah. How popular actually are the new dynamic faces? They've been out a little while now. I don't use it for my gnome character because well, it doesn't actually work with my hat. They made a almost equivalent of my basic face. Well, not my mug, but gnome code character's face. But they slightly changed the position of the eyes, and it doesn't fit with the beard. It covers them up. So I'm sticking with classic, quite happily sticking with classic forever. But yeah, are people really taking them up? I don't know. I mean, I imagine kind of the newer and the younger players are, but I'm pretty sure most people are sticking with the originals, right? People are asking about submissions. Submissions aren't actually open yet. In the past, when I've done that, there'll be like people that submit within the first hour or day or whatever, but they're never quality submissions. So recently I've just sort of kept the submissions closed for a little while because, let's face it, you're probably not going to be submitting within the first 24 hours. You've got like 10 days for a reason, so try and use that time. If for some reason you are trying to do the 24-hour jam, all the power to you. You know, if you've completed your game already, then great. You can submit in a few days' time when I'll upload, or I'll put out the submission link. I'll put it over all the socials, so I don't think you're going to miss it. Don't worry. Fat Boy asking in the chat. There's always one. There's always one, and he would be called Fat Boy. Will you remake the Tower Defense series? No. No, I won't. I'll give you a few reasons for this. We're going to create a special graphic just for you, my friend, about why Tower Defense does not need one. Okay, are you ready? We're going to do it in text this time, so I can't bother to write out. Number one. Number one, it still works. Okay? Now, admittedly, there is an asterisk to this, okay? So the asterisk down here is that there is some minor deprecated code, right? Little things like how the physics service, you used to have to use the physics service in order to set collision groups. That's no longer the case. You can just say part.collision group equals X, but that doesn't actually change anything. If you're still using physics service, it'll still work. You'll just get a little warning down below. Another example is raycasting. They changed the word from blacklist to ignore list, but that was purely a semantical argument. The code hasn't changed. They just changed the wording for reasons. If you know, you know, but I'm not going to get into it here. So number two. Number two is that I want to make other things. Not make TD forever. Tower Defense was always just intended to be about, here's how to make a game. You know, I've shown how to make lots of types of games, and that was another type of game I showed how you could start making. This is, you know, a channel of much variation. So this isn't just a Tower Defense channel. I don't want to be typecast. And then we've got a third reason. Number three is, and I think a lot of this ultimately comes down to people not understanding the purpose of a tutorial. What do I mean by this? Well, a tutorial is kind of getting you kick-started on the basics of how you might make something, right? So it's essentially an example project. It's not teaching you, or it's not saying, here are the 10 steps to follow, do exactly this, and you can become like a billionaire, right? It's not supposed to be a gateway to making an amazing game. And if you're in the stage where you don't actually have that much experience and knowledge yet, and you're just blindly copying everything, you're going to struggle to get very far. And this kind of leads into number 4, which is that I want you to figure out the rest, right? So use the tutorial as a starting point. And then if you've watched some of my beginner stuff, you've made it through the tower defense, and you're starting to get some of the basics, then you should be able to go, oh yeah, if I want to have a tower that I can place that provides a bonus to other towers, right? If I want to add some sort of farm unit, all these sort of components people are always asking about, well, oh, I can just tweak the code like this. I can just add a little loop in here, a little function. It's not too much to add. Oh, this is a very good question. Do you recommend ChatGPT for starters? Answer is no. And I'm not someone to say just AI is bad. AI is very impressive now. We should definitely be using it as developers as a tool, but you cannot make, certainly as it exists right now, I don't think it's worth even talking about what ChatGPT or some other AI might be like in 1 year, 5 years, 10 years, and how the whole world is going to be taken over by AI. That's not really helpful. Let's just talk about how AI is as it is right now. And as it is right now, you cannot make an entire game from scratch with no other knowledge just using AI. You cannot. So it can generate some good code snippets and it can give you some pointers. But if you don't understand everything it's giving you, you're not going to get very far. So it's kind of cool to get like a big dump of stuff, but that can be pretty frustrating, especially as a beginner. I think if you're working with loads of code and you don't really understand how any of it works, then personally, I feel as a beginner, I'd find that more frustrating. I would rather create a small amount of code that I knew all myself, that I wrote myself, and that can feel really rewarding and pretty satisfying. And the big problem with something like AI is it doesn't always get it right. So Griffo's just pointed it out. As everyone says, hallucination. It's funny how that word has sort of come to get a complete new meaning, really, with these language models. But it can talk about services or properties that don't actually exist in the engine. And as someone with a bit of experience with Roblox, I can read that and immediately go, what do you want about? No, that doesn't exist. But if you're a beginner, you're going to see that and you're not going to know that. And that's going to be pretty confusing. So I wouldn't recommend it as a learning aid. Now, I would recommend it for a developer who's like wanting to speed up your development a little bit. So if you wanted, let's say you're doing something with tables, right? And you kind of you want to make a deep copy of a table. And then as you're trying to write that, the AI just finishes off that loop for you. That's pretty helpful, right? It saves you just a minute or two of writing that out. That's the kind of thing that it's pretty neat for. It's also great for ideas. I mean, all of this kind of stuff that I've been walking you through, coming up with different concepts, you can totally have these sort of conversations with ChatGPT, and that's really where, you know, they are language models, they're chatbots ultimately more than they are coding assistants. So they're very good at ideas. And if you don't like the ideas it gives, you can just say, give me a list of 50, and maybe you can find one of them that you'll find interesting. Sorry about that. Mud Puppy asks, is it normal to have so much game ideas but never completing it? My friend says it is. Yeah, that is super common. I do it all the time. That's actually where game jams are really useful, because you're constrained to a set period. So you can't go too wild with the ideas. You just have to work with what you can actually do in that amount of time. So I think they're definitely helpful. Something that I found throughout my sort of development career, so to speak, is that whenever I actually release a game, I learn a little bit more. Now, obviously, I learn from everything I ever make, but you learn so much more from actually doing a whole development cycle as opposed to just making a little bit of code for this, a little bit of code for that. There's something about the entire cycle of starting off with a concept, doing a sort of an alpha, beta, some sort of like proof of concept, prototype stuff, right? And going up through the versions, all the bug fixing that goes along with it, some of the marketing and branding, and then the launch. And going through all of that really gives you a good overview of the different stages, so that then when you next go to a project again, you've kind of got some idea of the roadmap ahead of you. There's this sort of classic thing, I think, with game development, but anything, is that the last 10% of a project typically ends up taking like 90% of your time. And this is so true in game development, because you realize actually you might have all the mechanics there, but you just have some like really shoddy UI. And so you kind of think to yourself, oh, it'll only take just like a day or just a few minutes just to slightly change my UI. That'll be easy. That's no big deal. But then actually you end up doing loads of coding for different transitions and different UI states. And so that can take loads of time. And then as you're doing that, you realize, oh, actually, we need to change how this entire feature works. So you change all of that. And then you think to yourself, oh, well, you know, just a little thing is I need to work out the shop. But that's just a small thing. But then the shop becomes a whole other thing. And then you realize about all the economy and you sort of trying to work out where the optimal place to price stuff is. So it's very hard to estimate the length of things in programming, I think, because it's nothing's ever really linear, in the way maybe if you're building a cabinet, right, you can kind of see, okay, you know, maybe this needs to be varnished and I need to screw this bit on, but it's much more linear process. Whereas with a game especially, there's so many different directions you can go in. Star Smells asks, how come reroll is 1,000 Robux? I've got a really annoying thing I can't cook anything with and want to reroll. Well, I kind of feel like I explained this on the original video, which is that I don't want to encourage re-rolling, because the whole point is working with what you have. So if you really want to re-roll, you can, and that money will go back into the prize money. But it's about working with what you have, and you can totally do stuff with it. As we've talked about on the stream, we've run through various ideas, including Skibidi Toilet, and kind of like just playing about with different concepts. So if you haven't seen some of the stream, then go back and watch it, and maybe you can see what you can do. how long have we been going, guys? We've been going almost an hour and a half. I think this has been a fun little stream. I think we might end it here, guys. Hopefully that's given you a few pointers of stuff you can do. It's been fun just to have a little casual stream with you guys, run through some ideas. I'm really looking forward to seeing what stuff you guys make for this GnomeJam. Let me know, like, let everyone know what you're working on. We've got our little event discussion area. You know, come here and post what you're making. You know, this guy's making some kind of laser gun. Look at this. He's got a little magic wand and little bookshelves. Look at all this stuff people are making. Come and join us. Come tell us what you're making. Part of the fun of a game jam is just that community aspect of everyone's making a game at the same time. It's awesome to see the community come together like this. So come here, come join us, show us what you're making. But until then, I will look forward to seeing all your entries on the 25th. Good luck, everyone, and goodbye!